Happy Friday night to Mr. and Mrs. Ghost Cob. Congratulations on your 1-year anniversary doing videos and the whatnot. They grow up so fast, don't they? Anyway, here's a response to your question about if we could go back to any point in history, what would that be? There were several in the running. I'm a huge fan of Einstein, a huge fan of Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and to go back and see any of them during their younger years or when they were being influential to the world would have been fascinating. But in the end, I went more the Back to the Future route. You know, when Marty goes back and sees his parents live and in living color as high school kids, I think that's what I want to do. And here's the whys and the wherefores. My parents were 38 when I was born, which means by the time I was 12, they were 50. Most of my classmates' parents were still in their 30s at that time. And so I got to know all of these parents of my friends who were fun-loving and really go-getters and buoyant people, and my parents were 50. There's nothing wrong with 50. I hope nobody takes offense at that. But my parents were pretty well entrenched in doing their own thing by the time they were 50. And while my friends' parents were out having fun and hosting parties and doing things, my parents were, doing their own thing. Again, there's not a thing wrong with that. But as we grow older, we start to learn things about our parents. When I got into my 20s and into my 30s, my siblings would tell me stories about how much fun mom and dad used to be. And even mom every now and then would slip and give me a little extra insight that I didn't previously know. And here's what I can tell you. My dad was a stud athlete, state champion hurdler, state champion in football, held the state record for rushing for a few years. My mother, on the other hand, was the academic. Now, the interesting piece of this is the 50s, the nuclear fabled 50s that we all hear so much about. My dad, the stud athlete, didn't drink and didn't smoke. One of the most popular dudes in school in the 50s, and a stud athlete, and he did everything right. Well, everything but the school part. My dad was not particularly scholarly, God bless him. My mother, on the other hand, straight A student, battled for valedictorian and did not get it. Full ride scholarship on academics. Smoked and drank like crazy from what I understand. So if y'all remember that scene from Back to the Future where Marty's mom, he meets her in high school and they go to prom kind of together and she starts smoking. He's like, oh my God, you smoke? That was kind of my reaction to the whole thing. I always thought, growing up, because Dad was a stud athlete, we all know how athletes love to party, right? No. Dad was straight as an arrow. Mom corrupted him. So back to the storyline at hand. Both of my parents are deceased, and both died of cancer. But I would love to go back and see what they were like in high school because, Dad was smitten with Mom from about 8th grade on. And they started dating like sophomore year in high school, maybe junior year, and never looked back. Once they connected, it was done dealing. The cards hadn't been dealt, the cards had been drawn. But to see that magic in its prime, to see my dad, the pure stud athlete, and my mom, the corrupt scholar, and how that all unfolded, would have just it would be spectacular. You know, we can draw images in our heads of what, you know, our parents looked like in high school, but we were never there. And those were ultimately the formative years of our lives, because those experiences, you know, ultimately lead to where we are today. You know, it's such a chaos theory, butterfly flaps its wings in Japan, you have a thunderstorm in Nebraska kind of thing. I was too young when my parents died, 25 and 31 as years go. But I never got to know them the way a kid should know their parents. So you asked the question, I'm answering it. My moment in time would be any day where my parents were dating in high school. I would just love to go back and observe that period. I think that would be really interesting and enlightening. Again, knowing that my dad in particular was defying stereotypes by being the straight and narrow stud athlete, and going to parties and not drinking and not smoking in, again, the 50s when everybody did those things. You know, a lot of interesting history there that I think each of us overlook in terms of, you know, we are where we are largely because of our parents, whether that was good decisions or bad decisions on their parts, but those were behaviors and things that started to shape in their high school years or college years or working years. You know, it depends on how those relationships develop. But again, just some insight into that I think would be spectacular and fun. Nevertheless, I'm going to draw this to a close, but I do want to just say congratulations. I think you've got a great channel, you've got a great family, you guys have a very social, fun kind of thing going, at least when you're on camera, and it just puts everybody at ease and makes us all feel like part of the family. So from one brother to another, take care and keep the fun times rolling. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.